Today, we're going to be showing you how to paint skin. Yo, dog, Kenny Boucher here, Next Level Painting, hitting you up on the literal best of all days. Coming to you from the Beats Lab in Hollywood, California. We're doing it again. Today, we're back on the Sioux War Chief. From Old Guard Miniatures, we've been following this project for many weeks now, and we're finally back on task. Today, I'm going to be talking about glaze technique and how we're going to use that to pop these highlights out. We're going to glaze, we're going to wash, but we're going to use basically the same paint and wash to do both processes, as I discussed before. Glazing and washing are just techniques. They're not products. We're going to use them both. Now, this video does come with a little homework that needs to be done, so you might want to check out one of these videos from previous steps. We laid down some base coats on this face already. We used a couple of thin coats with a paintbrush, a couple spurts with the airbrush, and a little bit of wash. That was already taken care of before this video. Today, we're just going to focus on how to make it look HD. If you guys don't mind, I'm going to take a quick second to shout out some clutch individuals over on Patreon. Yo, right out the gate, got my man Alan, Cullum, Justin, Ryan, Joey, Iris, Loic, Chris. Yo, I can't do it without you guys. You guys came in clutch this week on Patreon. Patreon is the VIP access page to all these videos, all our Twitch VODs, bonus content, ad-free early access, and more. Thanks, guys. Right out the gate, Old Guard Miniatures. This is our Sioux War Chief, guys. He's older than me. This is what we've done so far in the previous videos. This is a historical miniature, so we are keeping it muted. We're going to start off with a little Midland flesh. This is a P3 formula, privateer press from the Grimkin line. We're going to use a Slow Fuse Gaming Bombwick number 0. These are sable hair brushes. The price is right on these. I just love them. We're going to use a little Vallejo retarder medium. We're going to use this to slow down that dry time because the glazing process is slow. It's methodical. It requires patience. We just don't want our medium and our water to evaporate too quick, so this helps. Take a look right there on my thumb, guys. That is the consistency I'm looking for. It is basically, to quote a friend, dirty paint water. We are very slowly but surely introducing some highlights to the raised surfaces. Now you can see that we already washed this face. The wash revealed to us the story, paint by numbers. It's allowing us to dab in these highlights. It's very thin coat of paint. They're going to dry, they're going to be subtle, and then we're going to reinforce them. The trick here when you're using the glaze technique is you are essentially placing a very thin translucent highlight color over a midtone, sometimes a shadow, and you are controlling the placement 100%. You are going to be subtle. You're going to build it up. You're going to let it dry. You're going to come back, add a new coat. You're always going to let it dry though. Patience, because otherwise you're just going to reactivate that paint with the next coat and it's going to peel up and it's going to look awful. So this is what we got so far. Couple of coats, couple of dry times. We're just going over, reinforcing it. Now we're just dabbing in even thinner, dirty paint water as it were. But I'm not a scientist. I don't know the actual term for how thin that paint is. Building it up and it already is that much more in definition, that much more detailed. We haven't barely done anything. We're just using Midland flesh, which is a color we already use when laying down the base coats. Now we are going to keep them in that native skin tone, so we are going to work the highlights up, but as part of contrast, you got to make them bright areas brighter, but you got to make them dark areas darker. So once I'm happy with the highlights and how they're popping, we will be switching gears and washing. So this is Ruby, this is Secret Weapon Wash. We are going to use it as a controlled wash. We're going to add a little Liquitex matte medium to it because we're going to thin it down real far, but I don't want it to break apart. I don't want it to separate chemically. Again, I cannot stress this enough. I am not a scientist. So we're going to get a nice little slurry going, get a little bit of water involved, and now here is our Ruby dirty paint water. And here we are still using the glaze technique, but we are shading it. So a lot of people would say, hey, this is a wash. Washing is typically more of an uncontrolled all over the place. Glazing is a little bit more controlled. So we are using it in the traditional sense of like washing in the shades, but we are still using the technique, very controlled technique known as glazing. It's It's going to take several thin coats. We're still going to nurture it. We're still going to dab it in. Still going to be subtle. What we did previous to all these steps was a wash, and you can see that in the previous videos. This next step is called by many people a pin wash, where we are essentially throwing this wash into a straight line or into a crease, very controlled. It's still glazing in my opinion because we are being thin on purpose. We're being very subtle on purpose. It's going to take multiple coats. We're not using a very aggressive high pigment color here to create these hard edge lines. We're still staying in that subtle spectrum, as it were. So now we're doing the same thing in all the lines, in all the creases in his faces. He got some very subtle details, and we're just going to start subtly building them up. We've let it dry. Round 2 to reestablish some of these, you know, sort of pin wash, sort of glaze techniques right here in the creases, the line, the smile lines, the brow ridge, the furrowed brows, everything that is a little darker because of the wash we used in the previous video. We're just reinforcing that. And now you can see our native skin coloring is coming out. He's getting that tan. He's getting that slight ruby hue to the skin. He's looking his best. And for a billion-year-old model, he's looking pretty good. All right, let's switch gears. Red Black. Another Secret Weapon miniature wash. My man Les Bursley came up with these. And my man Justin over Secret Weapon Miniatures sells them all day, every day. So we're going to just reinforce this contrast on the dark spectrum. A lot of people get really focused on highlighting. That's all good and fun, but you want to do both. If you want to get that maximum contrast, you want to be thinking about how you're going to make things darker too. And we're spending most of our time on reinforcing these smile lines and these furrowed brows, as I said earlier, because that's what is going to make this Sioux War Chief look his most ancient and most distinguished. Let it dry. Round 2, round 3, round 4, I don't even know how many times. It's basically just repeat the step until you're happy, giving yourself substantial dry time in between steps. And he's looking amazing. That's a hand sculpted model, guys. Somebody over 30 years ago sat in his Beats lab and made this model 1-to-1, no computers. It's fabulous. Now we're going to switch back to Midland Flesh. We're going to pull out a very skinny little synthetic brush, and we're going to just put the exclamation point on a couple of highlights here. Make this skin gleam. Anywhere we see a natural wrinkle or fold, we are going to accentuate it with an under highlight to make it look as three-dimensional as possible, making it look its absolute best. We're going to be putting a lot of work into this face because it is the focal point of this model. Staring right into that amazing grizzled veteran's face. I love it. Same deal right here. I'm going to hit the bottom lip where the light might come down just beyond his nose. Clip that lower lip, the peak of his chin. Anywhere else we think the light would interact with his face. We are, like I said, we are sitting here on this historical spectrum, so I'm not going to go insanity mode like I like to do with my 40K minis. I'm going to still respect the medium, but I'm going to add a little bit of flair here to the face. Looking absolutely amazing. I'm very astonished with this model. And we are slowly now in the stage of making everything HD. Everything has basically been blocked in, washed, set in stone, and now it's a process of subtly glazing in these pieces of definition to bring that model to that next level. Now, this is absolutely my first historical miniature, so don't quote me. I'm not a historical miniature scientist. It is not a thing. I am painting this for my mom, 40K Sue, and today, on the day of this recording, is actually her birthday. Happy birthday, Mom. Now we're getting them splits in his mouth. We're gonna just slice in a couple of weathered lines on his lips, like he's old, out in the sun all day, every day. We're just having fun with it now. And the cool thing is, if you go too extreme on these highlights by accident, you just pull out that wash that we were using earlier and kind of glaze in some of them deets. That simple. Now, I recognize everything we're saying is highly confusing because we're using a product that is called the wash, but we're using glaze technique mainly. Here it is, guys. That's just one wash in the top left, and all the work we did here today. Faces are secretly easy.